All right, straight from the barber shop in Kent Mafaleo's house, we got Marco Sanchez, who's going to be headlining our show on July 8th. Marco, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, brother. Great. Just getting cut up by my boy. We tried to kill each other yesterday, and then he cuts me up today. So
You look
doing pretty good.
absolutely fresh. I mean, you're just getting ready for the fight, right?
Yeah, I'm getting ready for my fight. My boy right here, he's ready to go. We got our last hard sparring session yesterday. Um, Still a little banged up and sore from going with big man, but he's looking sharp and ready. And then 2 weeks later, I put in work too. So yeah, man, just living the dream.
I've always wanted to ask, what is it like having to spar with someone like Kent who carries so much power with each strike?
The great thing is he's a great partner, man. Let's just put it that way. He's a great training partner. Um, the main thing is I would say is he's of course he takes care of me. My 100% would be like Kent's like 80%, right, with his power. So he still has good control. Um, but more than anything, it's just it forces me to be super sharp with everything that I do with my striking. I have to be a lot more precise, which is what I've been working on for this fight too. My last fight, I was it wasn't like I wasn't myself with keeping myself composed on picking my shots, so to speak. So working with him and working with Alden and guys like Andrew Mix and my buddy Taylor, Kent's brother, been really working on staying composed and picking my shots more.
Yeah, I really do want to get into, the X's and O's of this upcoming fight and your past fights and things like that. Um, your coaching side, you've been doing a lot more cornering and coaching over the last 14 months. It's kind of crazy. I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, Marco's fighting again. I was like, it feels like you've been gone for like years. It's only been 14 months. It hasn't been that long, but it feels like you've been gone for a long time. How are you feeling headed into this fight?
I feel great, man. This is the best I felt. Fighting, it's what I love to do. I love coaching just as much. So a lot of people here, like I moved here 5, 6 years ago, but I've been training 13 years, but I've been coaching for about 10 years. I was just in California last week when I was training out in Classic with my home gym out there too, where I started. And there was this kid that came up and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man? You're Marco, right?" And I was like, "Hey, what's up, bro? Nice to meet you." And then he's like, "Hey, you were my first coach." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he's like, "Yeah, at this jiu-jitsu gym named the jiu-jitsu gym Electric Jiu-Jitsu." And I was like, "Huh, that's crazy." And I was like, "How old are you?" He's like, "I'm 22. I was 12 when I was at that gym." So it's crazy, man. It's like, and I think about it now, I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like I'm still 30 years old, so in my mind, I still feel like I'm super young, right? But it's just been in the game a long time.
That is kind of one of the crazy things specifically about you is I think a lot of people don't realize how young you still are and how many more miles you potentially have in this game if you so choose to continue fighting. That's kind of the next question I wanted to ask. How much longer do you think you do want to do something like this? Taking fights. I mean, obviously you probably will want to coach for much longer, but how much longer do you think you want to continue to fight?
Um, Honestly, as long as my body's holding up, I want to continue, man. I love this game. And my amateur career, I had a great amateur career. I was 4-1 in MMA, 3-1 in Muay Thai. I did a ridiculous amount of jiu-jitsu tournaments. So I had some stumbles now in my pro career, but I'm pretty self-aware to know, and I've been coaching for a long time to understand where I'm at in the game. If I'm not competing and I can't compete with the best guys, I've been with the best guys from King's MMA, Classic Fight Team. That's where I started. Out here when I was training with the pit at Agima with Court, all these guys. So I've been around some of the greats. So I don't need, training is training. I understand that, but I understand where I'm at in the game and I know I can compete at the highest level. That's why I don't get down about losing some fights here and there. I'm still super young in my pro career that I know longevity is what matters in the sport. Like it's not like boxing, you lose one fight and now everybody thinks you're a scrub, right? Like
Yeah.
and there's so many ways to win, but there's so many ways to lose too. I think it's the guys that know how to take care of their bodies and just continue to progress and just stick with it.
No, I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, I just think of two fresh off of my mind off of this last UFC pay-per-view. Amanda Nunes lost her first pro fight back in the day. Charles Oliveira has completely skyrocketed in terms of his stock. And when I talk to every single fighter who is in the room with you, they all say the same thing. Marco is, the mastermind, the guy who knows, who has the highest fight IQ in the room. All of that being said, has it been frustrating over the years to have to deal with some of these, not the best case scenarios in terms of fight outcomes over the last couple of years in your pro career?
It's definitely frustrating. Of course, every loss hurts, right? Whether it's amateur, pro, or just in life. That's a beautiful thing. It's like there's no what is that? There's no joy without pain, right? That 50 Cent song, and it's like it's the truth. It's just something that's happened in my life. I come from public housing. I'm first generation. My parents came here from Guatemala. Um, I grew up in South Central LA to Buena Park, California. Um, so in some ways, I feel like I've always been 10 steps behind everybody else, and I've always, even in the gym, I've never been the number one guy that everybody's looking at, whether I was playing baseball before, whether I was never the number one pick, but I was always willing to outwork everybody. And that's what I feel with this too. It's like I'm the type of person I'm just willing to put in the work that nobody else is. Like I'm in the gym 7 days a week, whether it's coaching, whether it's training, strength and conditioning. Like sometimes Core and all these guys have to tell me like, yo, like reel it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't get down on myself because of the experiences that life has given me. And I feel like one day I'm going to be giving this speech after I get the fierce belt or after I'm in the UFC or when I'm in the UFC, like, yo, remember where I started. I was 1-3 when I started. Like you could be down and out in life. And as long as you don't quit and you keep working hard and do things with a good heart, like good things are going to happen.
There's so many things that you just said that I want to ask you about. I'm going to start it off with, how much has martial arts guided you in your adulthood?
Man, I know it's a cliche, everybody says it all the time, but it really did save my life. I was going through depression before I started. I had tried to commit suicide. I was going through some things that I don't want to really get into, but it's like I wouldn't wish on anybody's life, whether it's me personally or people that I know and love that have passed away, that are doing life in prison now, for example. Like um I don't know, it's been rough, but martial arts really did save my life. And having great people around me as well. Like I didn't have as much money to train, right? Like, so that's why I'm so loyal to Classic Fight Team always and Tyler Wumbles, because when I was down and out and I had nothing, he was the first person that told me like, hey man, you could do something in this game. All right. Like this is before Classic Fight Team was even a gym. He was coaching at 5 different gyms. And he's like, if you can make it anywhere out here, dude, like you're more than welcome to come train. And I used to take the bus all over LA County, all over Orange County, wherever I could. I was still working full time. I was helping my parents pay all the rent and whatnot. And so again, that's why I don't get down and out with being 1-3. Like I've been struggling and really grinding my entire life. So I know my time's coming.
I mean, I think that that is a shared sentiment with many, that your time is coming. I think about your last opponent, Greg Ellis. I don't know if you've followed what he's been doing, but he's gone on to win 4 fights in a row. He's got 2 belts now himself. And he was also similar on kind of a losing streak. He had won his first 4, and then I think he lost his next 4 when he faced you. And so, this game is just ebbs and flows. And I think that a lot of I think there's still a lot of a bright future for you in terms of a fight career, whether that be here, whether that be on a bigger scale, wherever that may be. Talking about these past 14 months, I should say, you've had a couple of canceled bouts along the way. I remember actually back when I was working at a TV station, we did an interview prior to a fight that you were supposed to be having. How frustrating has it been just not being able to get back in there? Or has it been okay because you've stayed busy cornering and things like that?
It's definitely frustrating. From when I turned pro till now, I feel like I could have had at least 5, 6 more fights, but so many of them got canceled. Like, despite my record, I do feel like I've earned my respect in this game, and not just anybody takes fights with me. Like, I get a lot of people turn fights down or like people pull out, and I ended up having to pull out this last time in December. I finally got my knee taken care of and stuff. I had to get it scoped out. I've had a bucket handle tear for like 8, 9 years. So for all this time fighting, I haven't been able to bend my knee past 90 degrees. So this is what I'm excited about this fight, is I'm free to just let it all fly.
How has the recuperation been for that?
It's been amazing, dude. It's kind of crazy to think about. They just make like 3 holes in your knees. They just scope it out, and then like a month later, I'm like, oh, it's like brand new. It's kind of insane, dude. Like,
Is that part of the reason why at the top of this you said, I feel better than ever? Do you think it's because of that knee situation and getting that taken care of after all these years?
yeah, 100%. I haven't been able to triangle choke on one side for years. I haven't been able to even just shooting for takedowns or doing anything. I didn't want to get pushed over my knee because, what if it gets locked up during practice or what if it gets locked up, worst case scenario, during the fight.
Sure.
I just feel incredible to go into the gym with a clear mind of just like, hey, like I could do everything my body's meant to do.
I kind of want to go back to what we were talking about just a minute ago about your upbringing and things like that. How did fighting come along in the first place? When did you start training and how did that all come to be?
Uh, I started at 18 years old, man. So funny thing is, one of my friends, he trained at a jiu-jitsu gym down in Cali. I've always heard of MMA. I've watched it before. I remember my first fight I ever watched, I think it was like Tito Ortiz and Ken Shamrock was like the first one, right? But years later is when I started training. But one of my buddies got in a fight at a house party, right? And he was never confrontational. He was just a super cool kid, and he choked. I didn't know what it was at the time, of course, but he got in a fight. He ended up on bottom, and he got a triangle choke on some guy, and like put him to sleep. But like a martial artist that he is, dude, he got up, didn't. You know how it is in street fights. Something that's scary, dude. People get stomped out or kicked in the head. You see on World Star all the time, but he just
Sure.
got up, left, and we're all standing there. I remember standing there with a 40 in my hand, like, yo, what the hell was that? What the fuck was that? That was wild. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, I ran into him at a bus stop. And then I asked him, yo, what was that? And then he's like, hey, this is jujitsu. If you really want to learn and like actually learn how to fight and stuff, like you should check out this gym. So I show up to the gym, and this guy Magno made a black belt half my size. I go in there, I was like, this guy, dude, yeah, right. This guy's not gonna do anything to me. I'm over here at Hood thinking I'm just gonna whoop on this guy. And he helicopter armbarred me, very first round ever. Like I took the class, I got helicopter armbarred. It was just embarrassing, dude, because I was like, oh, this little Brazilian guy is not gonna do anything to me. And then after that, I was just hooked, man. I was there every single day.
So you start training, and then from then on, it's just been the last 12 years straight.
Yeah.
Very cool. What brought you out to Utah?
Um, I just needed a change of scenery. Just the cost of living in Cali it's hard. Like I was still training full time, but I was also working like a full time job and had like 2 other side hustles just to like I couldn't even enjoy, like, you're pretty much paying for the weather out there. I love home, don't get me wrong. I'm super prideful about where I'm from and what I come from, but it's tough when you're trying to do a fight career at the same time.
You have this MMA career, obviously. You also are a big piece of Rise Boxing up in Park City. You train alongside MG, who is probably one of the biggest boxing names in the entire state, probably the biggest name in the entire state. What, when you were growing up, you said that you watched MMA and things like that, but who have you kind of watched and kind of tried to mirror your game after, be it a boxer or an MMA fighter?
That's a good question. I would just say one thing, I've always been a big fan of like Jose Aldo, and for boxing, I would say, uh, I had to choose somebody. I'd say like, I'm a big fan of Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a very technical boxer, great, comes from Oxnard, California, like similar type of area. So those 2 guys are guys that I really looked at a lot coming up.
Yeah, when it comes to them, or when it comes to when you're coaching, what do you kind of look for? Because I believe there's one kid at Rise Boxing. I can't remember his name. I remember there was a kid who was like really, really talented. Do you know who I'm talking about? He's like at like every tournament.
Yeah, dude, Cage. I can't say, man. He's 15 years old now. He's been training for a long time. He trained, I think, since he was like 6, 7 years old. He's been with MG a lot, and then I just go in there and add in more my mix of like MG's extremely technical and she knows the fight game, and I'm big on like fight IQ and why we do certain things during a fight. Like same thing whether I'm coaching Kent or like going to help out court out there. You know, everybody has a different style, different game, so I can't coach everybody the same, right? Like that's the thing with coaching everybody. Like some coaches, not bad mouthing the coaches, there's a lot of great coaching, but only have one style. You know, it was like you like can't do the same things that I can do, right? And like vice versa, I can't do some of the things that he can do. Or like Cage is a man, that kid, like he's 15 years old and he gives me a run for my money and we're straight boxing where I'm like, hold on, man, like I gotta start putting some power on my punches, man. Like this kid's savage.
How rewarding is it to watch a kid like that grow up? I mean, you know, he spent the majority of the time with MG, but seeing him grow and develop over the years, him along with so many others that you coach and train very closely with, even at Agima, who are some of the youngest fighters that are coming up.
That's the most rewarding part is seeing them grow and really grow into themselves as well. Like with Cage, his you could see his confidence in himself more than anything. Like, yeah, fighting is great, but who they become as a person, who you become as like a man, for him growing up to becoming the man he is, I'm like super proud of him. You know, of course he's a teenager, he has his moments, you know, like we all did, but he's grown up to be a good young man. And that's the most important part I feel about coaching is that's what I care about the most. Like, yeah, you're can be a world champion, that's great. But if you're kind of like just being real, if you're a piece of shit human being, I don't want to be a part of it. Like my job's to groom you and help you to become a better man or a better woman, depending on, you know, like who it is.
Sure, 100%. I did want to ask you, you brought up a good point going over to Charlotte to be in Court's corner and experience that. We saw you on the weigh-in stage. That was so cool to see. How was that experience just being around the UFC and kind of being behind the closed doors that so many don't get to experience?
It was incredible, man. It was more inspiring and motivating than anything. And of course, we didn't get the result that we expected. Court was doing amazing, but you know, it is that's how it is in the game. Sometimes you zig when you should have zagged, and you get caught. And I was I don't know. I more than anything, there was some teams that impressed me, but it just gave me validation more than anything. It's like like we're at that level. I look at Kent, I look at myself, Julian, Alden and all these guys. I know I can name all of my teammates right now, but I look at all of us and I'm like, man, we're right there. We just got to keep fighting. I look at all the teams there, all the coaching. I'm like, we're doing all the right things. All right. It's like we just got to keep trucking and keep going. And it was more like even with MG, I was there with her through like Madison Square Garden 2 different times for Matchroom Boxing into Zone and ESPN Plus. My buddy Raymond Daniels, I helped him with a lot of camps with gory kickboxing. So I've been around greatness a lot of my life and career. So it's just it was a great experience and it was rewarding for me to be there with Court because Court's not going to just take some scrub to go out there to help him with his striking, right? So it was something special to me because I have a good friendship and bond with Court. So it just meant a lot to me that he respected me enough to want me out there with him.
Saw you dap up Dana. That was absolutely crazy. I loved seeing all that. That was super, super cool. When we talk about you and your career, 4 amateur fights, 4 professional fights headed into your 5th, who's been the toughest opponent you have faced throughout your entire fight career? Or is it someone in the room that you've faced?
If I were to say the room, man, like I'll give you two. In the room, Raymond Daniels. I helped him, and he's one of my great friends, and he's taught me so much. He's done so much for me. Even when I moved here, he would still fly me out there for his camps to help him. This is before he started doing MMA again with Bellator. He was the Bellator kickboxing champ, fighting Nikki Holskin and those guys in Glory. And I gave him like some great rounds, but to this day, I think maybe if I'm lucky, I could say I won 1 round of like 7, 8 years that we trained together. You know, like it's that guy's incredible, and he's like 41 years old, and it's one of those where you just throw your hands up in the air. Where I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense, dude. Like it's not even fair. But he works so hard, and like I've learned a lot from him because of how hard he works. And for a fight, I'd for sure have to say my last fight. Um, I was impressed. I feel like most of the people that I hit with those shots in the first round, usually for me, whether it's in the gym or in a fight, they go down. So I think he had a great game plan. He was chopping up my legs. My calf was hurting for a bit for sure. But the reason I feel like it was him, but at the same time, I felt like it was things I was going through like outside the cage. Not to make any excuses at all whatsoever. He did his thing. He ended up winning the fight. Great, but I had staph infection like the week of the fight. I was on antibiotics. Like more than anything, it gave me more confidence in myself that I'm like, man, when I was dead after that first round. I'm sure everybody can tell in there, but so many times it was like a euphoric experience being in there because I'm having conversations with myself, and then there's two voices in your head. And I've never really had this in a fight before where it's like you're having a conversation with yourself, like, how bad do you want this? Do you want to, like, nobody's gonna blame you if you crumble and go down, right? But like at the same time, the other part of your head, that competitive nature, it's like, what voice are you gonna listen to? And like more than anything, I'm proud of myself in that fight that I plenty of times in that fight, I felt like even through the head kicks and everything, I was still firing back with everything that I had, and I had something in me. That's when I knew. I've always known, right? Like, but that's when I knew I can dig deep, and I'm like, I'm willing to give everything for a win. I'm willing to die for this.
How have you improved that self-talk over the last year?
You don't really know you're gonna have that self-talk until you get there, right? Like I've
Sure.
had those moments in the gym and I still pushed through and it was great. But under the lights, being main event in front of all your friends and family, being on a streaming service, you guys are sitting cage at everything, like it's a different, most people would wilt, most people would crumble. And that's when I realized, like, even more, I've always had great confidence in myself, but coming up into this fight, I'm fresh, I'm happy, I'm in a great place in my life. And like a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. So I know the guy I'm fighting to, he's a dog, dude, and he's like me in a sense where it's like he has that killer be killed mentality, and I think it's gonna be a great fight. I think I'm gonna dominate, but it's gonna be a great fight.
How important is this fight in comparison to all your previous fights?
I think every fight, that's what they say, right? And it's the truth. Like your next fight is always the most important fight. So to me, it's just another day. And more than anything, one thing I was talking about with MG is like, man, one day all this is gonna be over. One day, like our body's not gonna hold up, and that's just the truth. And I just want to enjoy every single moment. There's been other times I put so much pressure on myself. I'm like, man, I have to do this for my mom. I have to take care of my family. And it's like, that's a lot of weight carried to be carried going into a fight. And this is the first fight I feel so free and happy. And I just want to go out there, and I'm going out there for me. Now I'm in a place in my life that I've worked so hard. Now I'm taking care of my mom. My mom lives with me. We're doing great things at the gym. Hopefully we'll be opening a gym, like another gym soon. We're like coaching's been great, fighting's been great. So like now this is just specifically for me. I've accomplished so many things outside of fighting that I don't feel like I need to do, like I need to fight for that anymore. Now I'm fighting for me. Now I'm fighting to be the best in the world and just focus on that. No longer about like, man, I gotta take care of everybody else. Shoot, shoot, shoot. What am I gonna do? Like a sign of desperation. So this fight, I'm just going in there free and just enjoying every moment of it.
Wise beyond his years, Marco Sanchez. Good luck on July 8th. We cannot wait to see you headlining the card alongside Freddie Sandoval. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.